No Jumper seems to be very entrenched in gang politics. Like when I go on your channel and I see the gay crip speaks, like I'm like, yo, what the fuck? I'm like, you. I look at him like, yo, I could never do an interview. By the way, the dude, he emailed me too. He said, hey, I did it. He sent me a picture with you and him, and I guess he has like publicists. And I was just like, I can't get it off that I'm interviewing a gay crip. Like I can't get it off. Not on my channel.
Sure, you could.
Like,
why not? Everybody interviewing him.
No. But hear what I'm saying. Like
Just
your channel has turned into like there's a lot of gang entrenched politics. Like for example, like a lot of stuff will stay, not said. But like even when AD came in, I'm talking to AD about a bunch of shit. He started bringing out certain politics to me, and I was fucking mind blown. I was like, what? All this shit's going down in LA? And then I start putting like this one and one together, kind of making it two. And I start looking at the content slate that you also put up. Because I would always look at certain people like, who the fuck is this guy? Where does Adam get this motherfucker to put him on camera? And you do know, you're stirring up. I'm not saying you're like telling people to do dumb shit. But you do know No Jumper is very in tune with what's happening in the gang ecosphere in LA.
I mean, if you're going to be tuned in to what's popping in any rap scene in any city in America, I feel like you're basically going to end up having conversations about gangs and street shit. Like that's just where you end up, especially if you're in LA like us. It's just that's the shit that's going on. Like it's pretty tough to talk about LA rappers without pretty quickly arriving at where they're from and what they represent because of the fact that so many people don't get along and you can't have them around each other and whatnot. I mean, so from our perspective, like if you look at No Jumper pre-AD, was I doing gangster ass interviews? Yes, but not nearly as much, and I didn't understand as much, like I remember even the first time I got into it with Wack was pre-AD. That was like 2019. And I'm sitting there having a conversation with Wack with Blueface right next to him. And we're talking about Nipsey dying. And Wack, for some reason, he's forever down to die on a weird hill. And his hill that he was down to die on that day was basically saying that Nipsey wasn't a legend because he didn't sell enough records or whatever, which, okay, he wasn't exactly like, Kendrick or Cole in terms of how many albums he sold. But to call him a legend seems prudent from LA, and especially when you see how big the specter of his life still looms over Los Angeles all these years later. But in the middle of it, Blueface is sitting there just munching on chips, just fucking like not a care in the world. And I'm thinking in my head, like, what the fuck is this? You're a Crip, and I'm talking about the most famous dead Crip of the last 20 years, and you're sitting there munching on pretzels or some shit like nothing's going on. And then I figure it out later on that where he's from doesn't necessarily get along with where Nipsey's coming from or whatever. And like, I was so oblivious and blind to how serious that shit is at that time. And Wack ends up getting mad at me around that time because of the fact that I was doing podcasts with people like BH and Jay Stone and all these guys who are close to Nipsey. And I was talking to them and they were, just talking about shit. And I'm saying, well, how you feel about Wax saying that Nipsey ain't a legend? And they're all saying basically, fuck him, or like, insinuating that they were going to do something to him. That's why Wack got mad at me in the first place. But,
do you ever feel like you're flying too close to the sun in the sense of maybe a conversation or maybe something that happens at No Jumper might turn into some shit that happens obviously outside of No Jumper, but then they're going to reference it back to, well, it started because he said this on No Jumper. Like, that's why I kind of stay away from certain of those things right now, because I'm like, you know what? Like, yo, like, I'm still getting, like, the remnants of the Warren Chirac kind of off of me. That's kind of, like...
But I was just thinking about that. Don't you wish you kept doing the Warren Chirac?
Not necessarily the Warren Chirac.
You would be so badass if you had just been doing that channel for an extra 10 years. You would have made millions of dollars, and it would have been fucking sick. And you never would have got a Spotify deal, but it wouldn't matter. It would be badass.
Well, I wish I could still or kept doing like really raw content that like this. The shit that I'm innately, and I think you too, drawn to is not the shit you see on Twitter all the time and plastered across every headline. Like at times I act oblivious to shit, but like I know the real shit going on, and that's where the real story is. But like you almost kind of get criticized in my position and be like, hey, out of everything you could put your platform on, they almost make it, they're going to tie the rope around your neck in a sense and blame it on you.
Yeah,
but anyway.
But you open the door for people like 1090 Jake to be out here just telling any disgusting tale that happened between any gang ever. Like, if you had doubled down and said, fuck the war on Chirac, I'm doing the war on America, and just hired a bunch of little people to help you write scripts and talk about the worst shit that was happening in all these different cities, it would have been a very different past 10 years of your life.
I love 1090 Jake just because, and I told him this too. I said, yo, you're the new guy. And I've always said, I say, yo, you're going to have to make decisions that I made.
Yeah.
You're going to get cool with rappers. People are going to try to make you their friends because they know they got dirty shit against them. How honest are you going to keep it? And then how are you going to react when people really hate you? Because they're all going to turn on you. At first, they're going to love you. Be like, oh, this is cool because you're not talking about them. And then when you eventually talk about them, they're all going to hate you. And yeah, you can say, yeah, you made your money. But like now, you're going to kind of almost feel shitty about what you're doing because, yeah, the fans like you. But like now everybody's is going to reimagine what you're doing and make it really negative. Like you're the reason why crime exists and why, you know, like, oh, you did a video on this rapper who snitched. He couldn't rap anymore, so he killed someone. If you didn't do, they're not going to blame him for the killing. If you didn't do if you didn't do the video on the rapper that killed his career, he would have never killed somebody. But that's how they were doing to me in the war of Chirac.
This is the whole thing, is that you basically have to choose as a content creator, do you want to be a great interviewer or do you want to be a great commentator? Because as soon as you start commentating a little bit too much, then you're not going to be able to get the interviews with the really important people. If you're willing to sit and have an honest conversation about Nicki Minaj, you're ensuring that Nicki Minaj is never going to fucking sit down with you. And when you look at people who really like win long-term as interviewers independently, because obviously you have a huge advantage if you're at a radio station or something, but take somebody like Nardwar. Nardwar will never sit and have a conversation about Youngboy fucking beefing with Vaughn. He'll never like tell you anything about it. Like if you watch his interviews and stuff, I'm sure you can figure out stuff about him, but his content is not personal at all. And as a result, you have every pop star, every rapper, etc., who's down to talk to Nardwar because there's like no reason that you can come up with to dislike him. Whereas for an Akademiks or an Adam 22, there's a whole list of reasons to not fuck with us. And if you fuck with us, you are very much choosing to kind of like ignore a bunch of shit, because almost everybody that you could interview probably you shit on somebody that they're super cool with, and you just kind of have to navigate that. But I mean, from my perspective, it's like I'm kind of like playing both sides of it, where I end up having honest conversations on the podcast and I want to be better at just having takes and talking about shit honestly. But if you're really willing to go all the way in on commentary, you're just not going to be able to rub shoulders with the A-listers in the game, you know?